Great. Good morning, everyone. I'm calling to order the meeting of the Marin County Transit District Board of Directors for February 7th, 2022. Rudolfo, will you read the instructions to participate, please?
Certainly, President Walt-Peters. Good morning, everyone. We are accepting public comments over the telephone, through our online form, and through email. Our public comment form is available on our website at marintransit.org/meetings. We are also accepting public comments at info@marintransit.org. Please note, all comments received will become part of the meeting's public record. If you are participating by telephone and wish to provide a public comment, please press *9 when the public comment period is opened by the board president. After pressing *9, please wait until you have been notified that you've been unmuted, after which you will have a specific amount of time to speak by the board president. Thank you. I can now call roll.
Please.
President Moulton-Peters.
Present.
Vice President Rice.
Present.
Second Vice President Lucan.
Here.
Director Arnold.
Present.
Director Collin.
Present.
Director Connolly. Director Rodoni.
Present.
Director Colbert.
Present.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Wonderful. Thank you. So I'd now like to open time for public expression. If there's anyone from the public who'd like to make comments, you have 2 minutes. Holly.
I'll invite everyone listening in to use the raise hand icon in the Zoom meeting if they wish to make a comment during open time. We do not have any phone callers at this time.
Okay. I'll wait a few moments to see if anyone will be raising their hand.
Looks like we have no one.
Okay, all right, thank you. Again, we'll close public comment. Moving now to Board of Directors matters. I don't have any this morning. Is there anyone on the board who has an announcement or something they want to share with the rest of the board? Okay, thank you. Seeing none, we'll move now to the General Manager's report. Good morning, Nancy.
Good morning, President Moulton-Peters and directors. I'm going to share my screen here for my General Manager's report. If you give me 1 minute here. And I hope you can see it. Does that look right, everybody?
Yes.
Good, Nancy.
Okay, great, thank you. So we have had a very busy week this last week at Marin Transit, where we have been assisting TransDev with the transition of Marin Access Services to a new contract operating out of a new facility. The vehicles and the phone system and all of the service was transitioned at midnight on Monday last week. It was a very successful transition and it went quite smoothly. And Joshua Holloway is here to give some highlights about how the first week of service went. So I'm not going to stop sharing my screen if that's okay. And Joshua, if you just want to let us know how things went, that would be great.
Thank you, Nancy. I just wanted to let the board know that the first day of startup, February 1st, went relatively well. We had a very good experience with the passengers and the drivers. The pullouts, which was different for them, was the pullout from the 2 separate yards, which went went very well, actually. And then we had support from our corporate staff here, supporting the in-office staff and everyone at the park outs. I got calls from the client. They were very satisfied with the service that they received. Good to see some of the same drivers. Internally here, we were answering phones and they were able to get through and we were able to assist them. So service went really well. We're just looking forward to this, continued transition and getting to know our passengers more and, improving service from here on out. So first day went excellent. If anyone has any questions about service or anything about startup, just go ahead and let me know.
Hey, are there any questions from the board to Josh Shea? Okay, I'm not seeing any. Josh A., thank you for the report. Nancy, is there more to your executive director's report?
Yes, I'm going to continue on here, actually take a little bit deeper dive into the transition and let you know more about our outreach and the facility readiness. So just a quick summary here on the slide. We have continued to have meetings with the top origins and destinations. Those are things like Cedars, Marin Ventures, Lifelong, Medical. We've also continued to meet with our advisory committees, such as the Paratransit Coordinating Council, our Marin Mobility Consortium, and Golden Gates Advisory Committee on Accessibility. We've also used the newsletter as a means of reaching out to our customers and letting them know about the transition. And then we've also created a transition resource document that I'm going to share with you in a minute to show you a little bit more about that. And I will speak some more to the facility readiness as well, provide you with a few more slides on that, but just some highlights here is that the construction remains underway at 3000 Kerner. So in fact, you may have heard some construction there in the background from where Joshua was sitting. We have framing in progress there, part of the office and out in the warehouse. Electrical work is being done. We have air connections being made in the maintenance area for compressors, and the HVAC system is being replaced in the shop. We have already done work, as you know, and highlights of that are that the area is completely fenced now. It has been, the interior office space has been carpeted, painting has been done of both the warehouse and the office. The maintenance area floor has been epoxied. It looks really good. The building has also been sprinklered, and we have replaced the sewer lateral. So that's kind of the highlights. And I'm just going to then go through a few of the things that we've been doing. As I mentioned, staff put together a transition resource for riders and got this out via email and a variety of other mediums, which explained to them how the transition was really intended to be very seamless and that they wouldn't see a lot of change. The few things that they would see are that they would still have the same phone number, but a new phone tree. So they would have different options, buttons to push in terms of what their service they were looking for. So that was explained to them. Also it was noted that they would have assistance in English and Spanish during all hours of operation. And we provided them with a picture of what the driver uniforms look like, which are primarily black with the Marin Access logo on it. And then also noted that the offices have moved to 3000 Kerner. And then in terms of the office, in terms of the facility and what's going on there, this is the call center teams in the new office space that has been carpeted and painted, and they have furniture in there. And this is on what we call the north side of the office. On the south side of the office, however, there is still some work going on, and there is new office space being created there on the south side. So that's just photos of construction from several days ago, I think. And then within the maintenance facility, you can see that they have begun working there and using the facility. All of the equipment has been put in, or most of it has been put into the into the warehouse, excuse me. And so we are working there. And let me just show you some of the other, this is a little bit of the before on the left-hand side of how the floor looked as it was being sanded and ready for epoxying. And then to the right here is the maintenance manager's office that is being built out. That's still underway. So those are just a few of the photos of what's going on there. It's a very busy place. And I just wanted to thank the TransDev team for their patience and flexibility as we continue to make improvements in the building while they are trying to operate our service. So that's been going on. Wanted to make the board aware of the potential for service disruption on January 24th. About 2 weeks ago, Golden Gates Union, which is the ATU Local 1575, the drivers union, voted to authorize a strike. They have not taken a strike, and if they do strike, Marin transit routes operated by Golden Gate are going to most likely experience some missed service or delays. And while we are coordinating strike contingency plans with Golden Gate, we did want to make you aware of the routes that are operated by Golden Gate. Those include routes through the canal, Route 35, 36, 23, 23X, the 29, and the Route 71. So we, again, are working on that, and we will keep you up to date as we learn more. And I think actually, yeah, just the last thing then is in your packet, item 3B, we include our monthly monitoring report. As you know, since we were 21 months into the pandemic, it has made our comparisons of ridership a little complicated, but basically I think the main takeaway is that we continue to be at about 70% of pre-COVID ridership as of November. And we're seeing a relatively stable ridership, it seems, over the last, and maybe slightly increasing over the last couple of months. So that concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Great. If we could go back to, great, yes, the gallery. Questions from board members? Okay, I'm not seeing any. I'm going to call for questions from members of the public. Oh, excuse me, Commissioner Rice, you had a question, please.
Yeah, thank you. Good morning. Nancy, first off, just great news and great work on the transition to TransDev. I mean, I know that there's more to come, but I just really appreciate the report and just feel really good about the level of coordination that's happening and the relationship between Marin Transit and TransDev, and now with the users of the service. My question is with regards to a potential strike and service disruption. And of course, we don't know one has crystal balls. Are we going to be communicating, or how do we communicate with riders about that? And will there be a warning to us should there be an imminent strike, so that there's time to actually let riders know that that potential disruption is coming?
Right. So our information comes directly from Golden Gate. So when they know, they will let us know. And my understanding from Golden Gate management is that we won't necessarily, they are not required to provide any, the union is not required to provide any particular notice. So we may not have a lot of time. And so I will give a stab at how we inform our riders, but I'll let Robert chime in if I miss anything. Primarily, we will be doing it, clearly on the website. That's one of the ways we can do that. We push out on social media as well, email blasts to the extent we have that sort of information. Certainly to all of our key partner organizations, we'll let them know, community groups, that sort of thing. And then to the extent we can, again, given the timing, we could post rider notices at the stops. So those are the primary things that I can think of. Robert, anything to add?
Well, I think a service disruption of this magnitude would also require boots on the ground. So we would have staff at the major transit centers and transfer locations advising riders on what the impacts will be. We would also take advantage of our digital signage. We now have approximately 30 stops around the county that have digital signage that we could post real-time messages on. It is unclear whether or not we would have our customer service center open in the event of a strike. But if not, we would want to redirect that line just to a location that could also field calls coming in from the customer service center.
Right. And then I don't know if this is possible, and I don't recall exactly the routes that would be potentially impacted, but I did see at least one that services the canal. And I'm not sure if all the routes that are impacted are as heavily used as others. Would we consider actually sort of moving or migrating our ability? I'm thinking about which of those routes really would impact a lot of folks who depend on that transit, especially for work. And if there's a mitigation for that.
Yes, absolutely. That is something that we are considering. Are there available buses and drivers to take on some of those heavily traveled routes. As you noted, most of them are through the canal that are, I think all of those routes serve the canal. Yes, all of those routes serve the canal. So, yeah.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I see Director Arnold has her hand up.
Yes, this isn't a question. I just wanted to say that it was so nice to see this report and to see where we're going to be located. And so thank you for that. It made it very real. The north and the south difference was really fun. And so I just wanted to thank you all for the work that you have put into this, and we're anxious to see it work. Thanks.
Okay, I see Director Rodoni has a hand up. Please, Dennis.
Thank you, Commissioner Moulton Peters. Just a couple observation, I guess, then a question. Given that the strike may impact many of our low-income communities, especially in San Rafael, and our ridership seems to have rebound much better in Marin than other counties, I think it points to the fact how we have such a transit-dependent community, many communities. And so I guess as a follow-up, it'd be interesting to know the plan, how we could possibly substitute other buses for some of those routes, and whether you're working on that, and maybe we could hear more specifics at a later date.
We will definitely keep you updated in terms of what other services we can put out there. We are looking at that internally right now. So we'll keep you up to date on what that might look like. We don't know right at this moment, though.
Thank you.
Yeah, Nancy, I'd like to second that comment too, that please keep us apprised on the planning. These are our most transit dependent riders, and the service there is really crucial. I also want to thank and appreciate you and Jashay Holloway for your report on the transition. We know that our paratransit community was very interested and concerned about the transition. And so we'll look forward to regular reports on how it's going, and hope that you'll also be able to get the word out to the paratransit user groups that we have to keep them apprised as well. So great. Okay, and I'm not seeing any hands from the public, so we'll go on now to our next.
Madam Chair, I had one quick comment, if you may.
Did you?
If I may.
Of course, Brian, I'm sorry, I missed your hand, please.
Oh, no, that's all right, Nancy. Thanks so much for that. I'd just like to ask you to keep in mind if there's any school kids that might be affected by those routes, and to sort of keep that on your radar scope and communications with any of the relevant school districts that might be affected.
Thank you for that, Holly. I see you have a hand up.
I do. We do have someone from the public that wishes to comment on this item. So I'm going to ask AAI to unmute. And you have 2 minutes.
Good morning, board members for Marin Transit. This is Linda Jackson. I'm wearing a couple hats, one with the Aging Action Initiative and one for the school district. I'll start by saying thank you, Commissioner or Member Colbert, because I'm with San Rafael School District, and I'm going to let them know now that this is a potential affecting particularly students going from the canal to San Rafael High School, possibly to some of our other high schools. And I think it's important. I'm looking at the website. I don't see anything on there about the transit. I did see it in the IJ a few days ago, but I realized that there is something really, this has potential. And these are essential workers going to work throughout the county for caregiving and taking care of our most basic services. So it's important to be letting, I think of frequent information to Canal Alliance, Multicultural Center, Marin, the city of San Rafael about no strike today, no news today, stay tuned. Rumor of a strike next Thursday, but it's not something to do after the fact. We need to really be proactive on this to help residents and then the people that they are caring for. So thank you so much for listening.
Yeah, thank you. I see Mr. Weinstein has his hand up as well.
Okay, I will ask Mr. Weinstein to unmute and 2 minutes to speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you very much to everyone. Shane Weinstein, president of ATU 1575. I represent all the bus operators at Golden Gate Transit. I just want everyone on the call to know that this union, and I know Golden Gate as well, are absolutely committed to making sure that we don't need to worry about a strike. Okay. We're looking to get something done right now, but we are definitely committed to making sure that the community is not impacted by anything that goes on between us. And I wanted everybody also on the call to know that I am always open and available to talk to whenever you'd like about anything that you may have questions on that are going on between Golden Gate and ATU. So again, we look forward to getting this done and not having any interruption for anybody. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Holly, any further members of the public?
I do not see anyone else at this time.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move now to the consent calendar. These are routine items. Is there anyone on the board or members of the public who'd like to pull anything off consent? Not seeing anyone, I would entertain a motion. Is there a maker of a motion to approve consent, please?
I'll move the consent items.
Second,
Okay, we have a motion by Lucan, second by Director Rodoni. Roll call, please.
Certainly, Madam President, and apologies, my camera has crashed. That's the reason for my video being absent, but I'm glad to take roll. President Moulton Peters,
Aye.
Vice President Rice,
Yes.
Second Vice President Lucan,
Yes.
Director Arnold,
Yes.
Director Collin,
Aye.
Director Connolly,
Aye.
Director Rodoni.
aye.
Thank you. That matter carries.
Thank you. We'll move now to our final item number 5, service costs and financial trends. This is an information only, and Nancy, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. Yes, today we're going to continue on with our discussion about the future of our services. Last month, you may recall that we had a presentation on ridership and service trends. And today we're going to hear about the financial trends, costs and financial trends. And then we propose to come back next month with some more information on the alternatives and some of the options that we're looking at in terms of how we move forward with our service. So this is the second of the 3rd information presentations that we'll be making, and Lauren Gradia is going to do this presentation for us. So Lauren, take it away.
Great. Is that sharing properly?
Yes.
Excellent. And where we're going, but this is a series. This is the second in a series of 3 presentations. Ridership and service. This is on service costs and projections, and then the last meeting will be kind of on options. Not sure. All right. So that will feed into our service plan for next fiscal year, which serves as kind of the baseline for developing the budget that your board will need to adopt in June. This slide kind of it summarizes the outlook that I presented in the financial report from last fiscal year. And so just as a reminder and a starting point, we were in a strong short-term fiscal financial position. We were noticing the challenging service delivery environment, the continued need for sufficient facilities, and then noting that the upcoming and current contract renegotiations and rebids were creating uncertainty. And this still holds, and we'll dive a little bit deeper into what that means for our financial projections. So first, starting on the revenue side, this graph shows Marin Transit's operations revenue sources. It shows the actual revenues for the past 5 years on the left side of the screen, and then projections on the right side of the screen. And there's 2 major takeaways, actually maybe 3 major takeaways from this slide. The first of which is at the top, You can see the federal revenue for Marin Transit operations. And you can see in last fiscal year, or FY21, we had that huge influx of federal funding from the federal relief bills. And so we had about an increase of about $5.7 million in federal funding last fiscal year. We still have additional federal funding from the CRISA and from ARPA. And so we will be spending that in this fiscal year and then on into FY 2023. In total, from the federal relief bills, Marin Transit's receiving about $20 million. And that offset and allowed us to continue our services during the beginning of the pandemic when there was a lot of uncertainty about our revenues. We definitely saw that drop in fare revenue. So fare revenue is shown at the bottom in the dark green. And you can see that our fare revenue dropped about 50% in that pandemic during last year due to the pandemic. We are seeing recovery in fare revenue and we are projecting for it to return, but maybe not quite to the level that we were at previously. Lastly, in last fiscal year, we saw the more conservative allocations of the state and local funds due to the anticipated drops in the sales tax, property tax revenue streams, but that really didn't happen. And those revenue sources have remained strong and we do see those returning. So then on the operations expense side of things, this shows our operation expenses by type. And again, the actuals are on the left and the projections, the budget and the projections are on the right. One of the significant, so we did have a drop in our expenses last fiscal year, and that was primarily on the demand response side of the operations costs due to the lower demand for the Marin Access and paratransit services. And that's shown in that light, kind of the light greenish color. The fixed route contract expenses remained fairly stable. And then our fuel revenue, which is shown in blue, decreased both due to a drop in fuel prices and then also in a drop of fuel usage, again, primarily on the demand response. So looking at a couple cost drivers for our operation expenses, we're going to talk about fuel and then also the unemployment rate. This is a graph of the diesel fuel price that Marin Transit paid through the County of Marin pumps since 2019. And you can see that there is that 35% drop at the beginning of the pandemic in fuel prices, and that it's that combined with the lower fuel usage that created the drop in fuel expenses for the district. We are seeing a return and increase in fuel prices, and you're probably seeing that as you drive by the gas stations. For December, we're showing about a 12% increase over that pre-pandemic level. And then we are also starting to increase the amount of fuel that we're using. This is a graph of the unemployment rate in Marin County. And you can see that since 2010, Marin County has really had that, the unemployment rate has dropped kind of to a historic low. And then you see in the start of the pandemic, there's that spike in unemployment, but that actually really didn't correspond to an increased availability in labor. But we are also now seeing that return to that pre-pandemic low unemployment rate. And that really impacts how our contractors are able to hire and retain those frontline workers and is creating that pressure on our contract rates. So this is a summary of our current fixed route purchase transportation contracts. We're going to go into that in a little bit more detail. We do have three major fixed route purchase transportation contracts. We have the interagency agreement with Golden Gate Transit, and then we have two competitively bid contracts, one with Marin Airporter and one with MV Transportation. At this point, they're pretty comparable contracts in terms of that Marin Transit provides vehicles and scheduling for all of the contracts. The contractors provide the facilities and the dispatch services. Fuel is excluded from that hourly rate, and Marin Transit pays that as a separate direct cost. And then all of the customer service and security and maintenance for San Rafael is in a separate direct fee. So Marin Airporter operates the most fixed route service for Marin Transit at the budgeted hours for this fiscal year are 87,300. Golden Gate operates about 74,700 hours, and then MV has about 33,400 hours, and those are primarily Yearwood Shuttle, the supplemental school routes, and the rural program. There are some differences in how those contracts are structured, whether Golden Gate's contract is a pure variable rate contract, and Marin Airporters and MV Transportation have a fixed monthly fee that covers some of the like administrative and fixed fees, and then a variable rate that varies according to the number of hours that we operate. This slide goes into a little bit of the trade-offs of the differences between a variable and a fixed and variable contract. I think we can talk about this in more detail if there's questions, but the primary takeaway is that if you have a fixed and variable contract and you add hours to that contract, your actual effective hourly rate goes down because you're spreading that fixed cost over more hours. Whereas if you cut hours on a fixed and variable rate contract, you'll actually increase your effective hourly rate because you'll have less hours to spread that fixed cost across. So this slide looks at our the different costs for our services based on both contractor and service type. This adds in the lighter green bars the additions of fuel and Marin Transit's costs plus the additional staffing costs. And primarily what we're trying to show here is that for Muir Woods and for supplemental school, there are additional costs like the greeters that we put at Pohono for the Muir Woods shuttle service that increase the cost of that service. Additionally, there is a significant difference on the large bus service, whether we're operating those hours through Golden Gate or Marin Airport. This slide shows the contract hourly rates over time. And so the top line is Golden Gate's revenue hourly rate. And you can see in fiscal year 16, when we signed the latest agreement, we did have a significant drop in our hourly rate, and then that's escalated over time. The representation of the projection with the 18% increase is a conceptual number right now, and we are currently in those renegotiations, but that's the $161 per revenue hour is what we're going to be seeing modeled in the upcoming slides, and it's meant to represent just kind of the magnitude of where we are in those negotiations. Additionally, we do have on the Marin Airporter and the MV Transportation side of things, those contracts will also expire in the upcoming years, and that's the new rates are shown with an 8% increase, and that's what's modeled also in the financial model. You can see the effect of the fixed and variable rate on the MV Transportation services, and that's because we have, for example, in 2016, we added hours to that contract, so the effective hourly rate on that contract went down significantly. And then we actually moved hours off of that contract in fiscal year 19 and 20, and that caused that increase in hourly rate on that effective hourly rate on that contract. So this chart shows both the starting driver hourly wages and the high point of driver hourly wages, and then also with a comparison to the contract revenue hourly rate that we pay. And this is really just to show that that magnitude of difference is really more than the driver hourly wage, because that is a component that comes up and a major driver of those contract revenue hours. But looking at the span of the driver hourly wage and then accounting for benefits, and then also the conversion of a driver wage to a revenue hour rate, we see the span on our contracts is somewhere around that $19 range, where the span of contract rates is around $51. So there's more than just the labor rates drive in that difference between the contract revenue hours rates. Sorry. So with that, transitioning into looking at our forecasting. So looking at our financial model, this is all based on our 10-year financial model that serves as our basis for our SRTP. So Before we look at the baseline, this shows some of the key assumptions that that model is built on. So for the baseline forecasting, we're assuming no major changes in the current fixed route service hours. We're assuming a paratransit service growth rate of 2.2%. We're assuming that Golden Gate rate is at $161.63. We're assuming that as I showed in the prior figure, that there's an 8% increase of our competitively bid contracts at the rebid with an annual escalation. We continue to have that short-term fuel escalation of 5% per year, and then that transitions to a long-term escalation of 2%, a general inflation rate of 3%. We assume that there's no additional federal COVID relief funding for operations, and then the diesel tax, the sales tax growth rate, and the other growth rates are listed there. So those are the assumptions that get us to this baseline projection of our Marin Transit's reserve balance. And so the reserves are shown in the dark green line. And then the two other lines are the board adopted policy of Marin Transit holding between 2 and 6 months of the equivalent of 2 and 6 months operating expenses. So our goal is really to have that green line in between the kind of yellowish, the two yellowish green lines. You can see that with the primarily due to the federal relief funding, we continue to be in a strong short-term position. But with the projected increase in costs, our revenues and expenses fall out of balance, and we quickly expend that reserve balance. So we looked at modeling 3 service plan scenarios that would bring those revenues and expenses into balance. And these are kind of conceptual scenarios to show kind of the magnitude of what we're talking about to bring those into balance. So the first scenario was purely reducing service hours. And so it takes about 30,000 hours of service hours that are operated by Golden Gate Transit, or about 48,000 if it's from one of our other contracts. And so that's about 15 to 25% of our service hours. The second scenario is shifting hours between contracts. This is something that we did earlier in the pandemic when we were uncertain about our revenues, and we saved about $1.1 million when we shifted Route 17 from Golden Gate to Marin Airport. And it would take about 50,000, shifting about 50,000 hours. The third scenario is a combination of reducing service hours and also shifting service hours. So looking at what that does to our operations reserve, it does, if we cut that, in the cut scenario, cutting about 30,000 hours of service, it does bring our reserve balance within our target area. Similarly, if we shift hours between contractors, and it would be a shift of about 50,000 hours, it also brings our reserve balance back into our target area. It is important to note that these are conceptual, and especially with this particular scenario, that it's not a feasible scenario without additional fixed route parking and maintenance facilities. And then the third scenario, which is that combination of both cutting hours and shifting hours, which also brings it into the target area. So thinking forward, and also leading into the presentation that Robert's going to make next month, there are some opportunities right now, and we did add service during the pandemic. And so this is potentially a time to start to reduce that service. It's also a time to look at some of the less productive service and see if there's adjustments there that can be made. The sooner that we make changes, we can make smaller changes, and that can have a greater effect on our financial outlook. And then those incremental changes, if we can make those, they're certainly less disruptive than a larger service cut that could be needed in the future if we don't make changes. And then it's also an opportunity to address changes to travel patterns. I think there's always been this hope that someday the pandemic would just end and we'd have great clarity on what's going to happen, but certainly that hasn't happened, and likely it's time to start to look at what those travel patterns are now and take proactive steps. So this is the same slide you saw at the beginning, but these are the first 2 meetings and then the outlook for the future, just as a reminder. And then with that, I'm happy to answer any questions, and I will stop sharing my screen.
Thank you, Lauren. That was a great presentation. And I see Director Mayor Kate has her hand up.
Thank you, President Moulton Peters. That was a fantastic presentation, really complex hours, dollars, percentages, and you presented them really clearly. So thank you. So I have 2 questions. One on the Marin Transit revenue by source. On the federal dollars that we've received, do they have an expend by date? Because when you look at that, what my thought was is, do we take some of that, I don't want to say excess, but some of the where there's a little bit more cushion in 2023, and can they be pushed forward to future years?
They can. We do have other sources also that we can that we're pushing forward. So effectively, Measure A is also on a reimbursement basis. So we're shifting that forward. But yes, it has, I think, about a 4-year expenditure.
Okay. So that's something we might want to look at too, to kind of smooth those lines and have them reflect the expenses.
Yep.
And then on the last one, you had the 3 scenarios, again, so clearly presented. So scenario 3 is a combination of 1 and 2. And you had said on scenario 2 that it wasn't feasible given facility constraints. Is scenario 3, we'd be able to address those facility constraints enough because it's less? We're asking less? I just want to have
I think
clarity.
we're going to dig into that more in the next presentation, but yes, I think the hope from staff is that we could create something that is feasible.
Okay, thank you. Those are my questions. Thank you.
Lauren, I wonder if you could go into those facility constraints in just a little more detail for that scenario.
Sure, I think so. Being able to shift hours to our existing contractors, we would likely do that from a rebid of those services. We are in communication with our current contractors and with potential bidders, without having places to perform maintenance on vehicles and park vehicles. It's difficult for them to take on additional service or to attract other vendors to bid on our services.
Director Rodoni, I see you.
Thank you. Lauren, there's some additional federal funds that are sort of held up at this point. Have you built those into your formulas, or are they not able to at this point on the revenue side? So are these not include any funds that may be coming that we're likely to get at some point?
All of our operation funds have been awarded. So we were awarded our ARPA funds. So we have those in a grant and we're able to draw those down. Those were the ones that we potentially could have been held up in terms of awarding. And so we were awarded those funds. There is other opportunities right now. There is a significant influx of money under the new federal act, and then also due to the state budget surplus. Primarily, we're anticipating those are going to come in on the capital side and not on the operating side. So we are preparing to apply for numerous grants for capital programs, but this is primarily focused on our operations revenues, which the new federal funds is not likely to affect.
Thank you.
Are there any more questions from our directors before I move to the public? Okay. I'm not seeing any, then we'll open now to public questions and comments. Would you please raise your hand if you would like to comment? Okay, I'm not seeing any, but I'm going to double check with Holly. Holly, do we have any public comment or questions?
Looks like Holly is out at the moment. I believe she's launching the closed session meeting that will be coming up momentarily. I'm not seeing anyone wanting to offer a public comment, Madam President.
Okay. All right. Well, with that, then I want to thank Lauren for the presentation again, and we will move now to closed session for both legal counsel on existing litigation and a public employee performance review. And I will report out at the end of that session. Rodolfo, is there a separate link for this closed session?
That's correct, Madam President. Directors, you should all be receiving an email momentarily that will include the link to the closed session, and then the second link will be the link to return to this open session. Please let me know if you did not receive that email.
Okay.
And of course, I will be leaving this regular meeting open with a notice indicating that we're in closed session for anyone joining in at the last moment.
Okay, all right. I'm seeing the link in my email box, so I'm assuming it has showed up for everyone else. So I'm going to now move us to closed session. And if you'll join me in closed session at the link attached, we'll see you there.
Welcome back, President Molten Peters.
Thank you, Holly. We had a good session.
Good. I'll just wait for Rodolfo to come back on. There he is.
There he is. Okay, sorry to keep you all waiting, but we'll get going as soon as you want to reopen. And maybe Nancy will join us. I'm not sure, but I can do it.
Looks like she should be here. She is not able to. There, did you get her in, Rodolfo? There we go.
Yes, I was able to get her in.
Do we need to do anything, Rodolfo or Holly, to reopen the meeting?
No, just waiting for the report out. That's ready.
Okay, so I want to report out on the closed session that we just held. Direction was given to staff, and that's my report. So thank you very much. And now this meeting is adjourned.